why Mira can't go back to her old house. The colors of the dark one had penetrated Mira's body. All the other colors washed out, making love with the dark one and eating little. Those are my pearls and my carnelians, meditation beads in the forehead streak. Those are my scarves and my rings. That's enough feminine wiles for me. My teacher taught me this. Approve me or disapprove me. I praise the mountain energy night and day. I take the path that ecstatic human beings have taken for centuries. I don't steal money. I don't hit anyone. What will you charge me with? I have felt the swaying of the king elephant's shoulders, and now you want me to climb on a jackass. Try to be serious. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, on this traditional 8-day All of Rose retreat, we have come to, I believe they call it day 5. But certainly you're starting to see through the myth of time. What day is it? What time is it? There isn't any tomorrow and there wasn't yesterday. So how can we call today day 5? So if you start to get the loosening of that reference, congratulations. It's like the bell will ring. And then you reorganize, it means interrupt this samadhi, get up. And then you, how do you organize this thing to make it get up? And then just forget about it, it'll get up, like Pavlov's dog, and it gets up. So day 5, day 6. Don't be tricked by conceptual time. It is true, things disappear, things appear, and there is movement. But time exists only in one place. A good place to get out of. So we've covered 3 of the elements in Hollow Bones training. This training week, we gather to train. And the insight element is well tended to, as we can all testify. This period of time has been devoted to the practice of insight, held in a very strict, tight container, requesting a particular concentration technique, hour after hour, moment after moment, so that insight is well taken care of, which is the 5th training element for the week. The first training element is the first training element is sacred stewardship, environmental consciousness. I'll address that a little later. The second is cognitive or philosophical re-indoctrination. Therefore, the call on, who are you? Where do you stand in the neuro-linguistic, in the language that you use every day as a conscious, self-reflecting human being? What are your orders, your marching orders? What do you believe? What do you hold sacred? And so we're attempting to, through the koan process and my speaking, we're attempting to expand that possibility for you cognitively. You are the light itself primarily. Secondarily, you are a body and an ego. When you came, very much of your mind believed quite the opposite. I'm an ego struggling in the world. And oh yeah, I'm a soul or consciousness or something stuck somewhere, or maybe not stuck anywhere. But primarily, I move in the world as a man, among men on mission. My feelings and my thoughts are who I am. So you're leading with the horse behind the cart. So hopefully through my impassioned argument, entertainment, you might consider the possibility that just candidly you are diametrically in opposition to the truth. That if you consider your ego being to be anything other than a temporary myth, you are, I can't say the F word, but if I could say the F word, I would say candidly you are fucked. I can't say the F word because my handlers say, we want to go public with this. I don't know, I may not be able to pull it off. So, but consider that difference. Listen! It is possible that you are the light. And it's possible that means that when you look out, you see through the light, and you see through the ego. And that the ego is the servant of consciousness. You are not subject to the whims of your passions. You are not subject to the whims of your philosophy. You are subject to the purity of your consciousness. That's a different way of perceiving the world. If you could do that, certainly don't waste your time meditating. Go transform your neighborhood. Have fun with it. Be careful. Not want to listen to you. So we deal with that argument, hammering. You are the light. If you read the sutra book and go through morning service, again and again it states this. Again and again it states this. And then we do our chanting and walking practice. Look, pure awareness, yes. Going through the identification, the claim, the statement, my awareness, your awareness, all awareness. We set that up. Hopefully experientially, while we use language to do it. So that's taken care of. That's a presentation. Then the second is this idea of emotional maturity and integrity. Sit down. Shut up. Look directly into your mind. Stay present. Do not go off with what arises. Anger comes. Sadness comes, lust comes, and they all go. But you don't come or go. You stay in emotional integrity and maturity. Whatever arises is the opportunity to witness. Yes, look at this. Look at this. And in that learning, you learn that in your life, you are not subject to emotional promiscuity. You are subject to consciousness. And then emotion arises. An emotion, a feeling, wonderful, colorful thought. The old school used to describe feeling and emotion as colorful thought, feeling, are considered to be the same. And even, of course, that sensing is the same. Smelling is identical to thinking, which is identical to feeling. Hearing is identical from the point of view of consciousness. From the point of view of ego, they're all different. But from this seat, they all arise in relation to sense, so-called external objectivity, and they disappear again. We got the idea, because of the reptilian brain, that fear or anger was something that had to be reacted to around survival. And it was important back then. Something was going to jump out of the tree and eat you. You'd better move to reaction quickly and move. But we have moved, we've evolved. But yet our culture says, no, live in your reptilian brain. Adore your reptilian brain. Deify your reptilian brain. Lizards eat their children, gentlemen. You want to deify that brain? So feeling is information from here. So an enormous feeling comes up. Wow, what a tremendous feeling. It must have some big meaning. It doesn't have a big noise. It has a big feeling from this scene, from this period, from this awareness that you are. So it's over. You're not subject to the whims of feeling. You invite feeling in. Come in here. Yeah. What's this about? And how should I respond? So the practical application of that is sit long enough. Didn't get it yet? Back to the center. Oh, but I get so angry in there. There's so much pain. Okay, back to the center. Oh yeah, okay, back to the center. So, sit in it. No. K-N-O-W. From the purity and the vastness that you are, out through the core of your being, out through your mind, out through your thoughts, out through your feelings. Watching in amazement, it rising, and truly in amazement and great humor when you study the ego from this perspective. My ego is hysterical. It used to be historically hysterical. Now it's contemporary hysterical. But I've become a traditionalist, so I'm good to bring in some of this madness. So that's the second element within the training. The second reason we gather. Insight, cognitive and philosophical re-indoctrination. What is your doctrine? What is your philosophy? Right? We're all philosophers, and we all are indoctrinated, and we all hold sacred doctrines. So, that's the question. How do you organize your mind around your belief system? And what do you believe anyway? So we have philosophical body, we have the insight body in practice, we have the emotional maturity, integrity. Stay. Developing this ability, this capacity to be in intelligence, to be in emotional maturity in the face of anything. What really hooked me, one of the things that really dawned on me, was the practicality of some of the stories that were left. There are two teachings that are primary in the Mahayana schools. This is the past 1700 years since the Reformation, when the Dharma went from arhat, escape idea, to bodhisattva, staying in the world and party doctrine. That was a peaceful revolution that took a few hundred years. But the two central teachings that are left within the Mahayana and the Zen schools are the Heart Sutra, which we do, and the Diamond Sutra, which we don't do. Traditionally, the Diamond Sutra is chanted during sessions at some of the schools. And in it, there's a story about Gautama. He said that at one time he was a young monk practicing patience. The story is he was in Kalinga, which was the kingdom where actually Gautama was born and raised in northern India. And this was some historical time. The queen was quite smitten with him and became a student. And so the king said, who is this guy you're so enamored with? He said, oh, he's this young sadhu, and he's so profoundly insightful at learning lives. We gotta bring him. So I brought him So you're patient. Gautama didn't say anything. Just smiled. The king said, well, let's test your patience then. Having quartered, they took him out in the courtyard, they tied him to 4 oxen. They ripped him apart, ripped him into 4 pieces. And he said, had there been any disturbance in the quality of my mind? No. It was true that when my limbs were torn from me, there was not the slightest fluctuation in the quality of my mind. Therefore, I knew. And I went, I get a hangnail and the world is ending. I don't get fed. I don't get the perfect food on the retreat. There's not enough food in the bowl for me at the end of the meal, and I'm the retreat leader. That upsets me. Gautama is ripped to shreds. And he goes, damn, will you look at that? And I went, I am so F-worded. I'm done. The hook was set through me, the barb sticking out here. How do you get away from that? Here is a man that through his own discipline came to that level of seeing and understanding. But even if he didn't, the tradition that honors that and says it's possible. And that's a goal for us to be in that state of openness and receptivity and unreasonable compassion. Gentlemen, it's about love. Our tradition is wisdom and compassion. I'm hammering wisdom because wisdom is what we need in our culture. But it's about love. It's about unconditional love. That kind of gathering, that kind of focus, that kind of presence. So, the idea of discipline, the idea of being that centered, that awake, and that clear, that you could tear my arm off, that would watch it pop out. Damn. It's so far beyond. And I'm in. So the fourth is conscious embodiment. And your new men are very fortunate. Sensei Junpo has come to a new level of teaching. And, how many of you have a regular practice, a physical conscious practice? 3 or 4 times a week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So about a third. Can you feel that conscious embodiment part in the Qigong now? The Aikido's a little clumsy at it. Qigong, like this morning when you taught in silence. That's sweet. It's just that the movement, we're all moving together, feeling the ki or the chi, the feeling that, what it's like to be in your body. Not what it's like to be in the body. That's another egocentric nightmare. What it feels like to be embodied, right? This is what the ki or chi or prana in the yoga tradition. It's not me doing the practice, it's the practice doing me. It's not me doing the body, it's the body doing me. And we can start to feel that. So that's another thing within how we Bowen's training, as a training element, is we want for everyone to experience that conscious embodiment. And so these forms, these sacred ancient forms, are wonderful. And we were talking about things like new orders. Hollow bones is, we've been at it 2,500 years. We have a license to steal. I'm a lineage holder coming out of the Rinzai Shu, the 83rd patriarch in our line. We can move into this world now and do it, but we bring with us such impeccability, such depth, such strength, such wisdom. That's all available coming down through this line for us. And so we just make it our own. But it's a living thing. It's a living thing. All of our ancestors are alive yet. We're all coming right on down the line here. And it moves into another culture and opens up and pours through. It's our job to filter it. One time I was visiting with the Dalai Lama at a conference at his place in Dharamsala. And the argument was, what's wrong with the teachers? Because so many of them take advantage of their students. And he said, look, I got the Chinese to deal with. You got a few bad teachers. But he said, sincerely, he said, don't give them any more money. Don't give them any power. Like, you have the opportunity to clean it up. I can't clean it up. He said, I'm just the head of a minor lineage. I happen to be a very popular person in the world, but I can't even direct my own lineage because they're culturally bound. He is expected to do what he does as the head of the Nyingma, not come out and reform it and change everything around. It's his job to protect it, because the people don't want it changed. So, but we have the responsibility to take all the wisdom, all of the superb aspects of the starring transmission, and chop off all the cultural stuff that doesn't fit and that also has become corrupted over time. All organizations, all institutions run through a cycle. And then they either get cleaned up and start again, they die and collapse. So, but we have that opportunity to decide what to do. But don't think that this is some new thing. So please take out sutra books. And at 5 different brothers, of the new brothers would read one each of the 5 cleaning elements.
Sacred stewardship. What is sacred stewardship? What does this stewardship include? How am I as an individual fulfilling my commitment to stewardship? And am I acting with integrity in this chosen responsibility? How do the patterns of my consumption affect the earth and environment I live within? On what do I spend my energy and money? How does stewardship relate to community? Does a good steward have an organic standard? Do I take a stand? If so, where?
Philosophical and cognitive reorganization. How do I, as a contemplative being that seeks to understand and walk in conscious spirituality, think differently? What are the core statements about spirit and consciousness that I base my thinking upon? What do I tell myself and others about the deepest qualities of spirit? And how does this story influence behavior in my life? Do I choose the clarity of wisdom and non-judgmental awareness and the warmth of compassion over self-righteousness and selfishness? Am I willing to change my mind?
Psychological maturity and integrity. Am I capable of experiencing the deeper feelings such as sadness, grief, and compassion, which underlie my normal conditioned responses of anger, greed, and fear? Am I then willing to choose and act from the truth of compassion that this deeper realization brings forth? How do my feelings develop into emotional patterns? Do I realize that I choose my reactions to feelings? And am I willing to make other choices? Am I willing to stay mindful and watch a negative feeling like anger manifest, and then skillfully and compassionately choose another response? Am I willing to enter into transformational awareness and actually change the way I feel?
Conscious embodiment. Am I comfortable and at ease with my body? Am I fit and ready to respond as a warrior who might need to defend his or her family? Do I delight in this body enough to give a dance performance at the top of a drop of a hat? Is it necessary for me to have a disciplined physical practice? that I can remain physically aware and fit? Do I need to take conscious action to maintain this body's strength and flexibility?
Genuine insight. Have I tasted the pure sweet truth of the divinity within myself? Do I consider my personal insight and self-realization adequate? Have I experienced the freedom that is promised and offered by all of the contemplative tradition? Does the kingdom of heaven really lie within us?
3 cultural poisons. Denial. In our environment is fine. Cynicism. What can I, one person, do? And hypocrisy. My behavior is exemplary. So I'd like to address the idea of stewardship, sacred stewardship. A steward is someone who takes care of. The word comes from the ancient practice of the lord, aristocrat of the property, to being somewhat useless. So he had someone who ran the estate. And the real keeper and holder of that estate is the steward. And his responsibility was to care for it, nurture it, tend it. And it was wonderful because he didn't own it. So stewardship is not about ownership. It's about taking care of. Now, my argument around stewardship being an essential element within conscious practice is based on personal experience. I am an environmentally sensitive person. There are a lot of us now that suffer from environmental toxins because our immune systems are quite sensitive in some ways, but not to certain things. Other people are sensitive to different poisons, toxins. Mine are mainly respiratory, breathing in the air. I was living at the monastery in New York, the Catskills, and I would go into New York City. Didn't want to go, but I would have to go for a board meeting or to give a talk or something in the city. And I would go in the summer, and the air in the 80s worse than it is now. And I would get blisters on my eyelids, along my eyelids, and I would cry all while I was there because of the different toxins floating in the air, industrial pollution. And, so I take it very personally when I shit in the air. And so I took a little look at things because that's what could I do with it? There's really nothing much I can do except go away from the situation, stay on completely clean the air, or go in and suffer. It's not that bad anymore. I don't get blisters, I get real red, burn, and stinging in my eyes. Pollutants. But the fact that it was there made me ill was interesting. Something I thought about. How can this be? And that a whole lot of people are in that situation, that are environmentally sensitive, and poisoned. And then I considered also, well, how do I really feel? I became a very serious yogi. I studied my physical being in depth. And discovered that I also didn't want shit in the air burning in my eyes. I didn't want shit in my body. And when I ate preservatives and pesticides, when I ate agribusiness, I became ill. I became diseased. Not crippled, but diseased. And I walked around with a level of malaise in my body. Right? The level of feeling I could check in. I was deep enough in my awareness to go, I don't want this shit in my body, right? Because it's making me sick. I'm not as healthy, not as vibrant or alive when I eat Burger King or products that are commercially designed, laden with things that people shouldn't put in their bodies. We all know at this point, but we deny that there's a price for that. I know the price because it makes me ill. And I also know that it makes everyone. And I also know that that state of disease comes out in the angst in the culture. I know that it's not possible to poison ourselves in a state of denial and go around saying that we're cool and we're healthy and we're spiritual. That's hypocrisy. That's denial. It's like, it doesn't matter if I buy this food that makes me sick. We also know that there's a dead zone going out into the Gulf of Mexico that's now close to 100 miles long, 40 to 60 miles wide. It's a tongue. You see these pictures from outer space, there's this big, ugly, black tongue out in the ocean. It's a dead zone. Nothing lives in there because all of the runoff from all the tributaries in the Mississippi flow out there. And it gets bigger every year. That's going into our sacred ocean. So, and every time you buy a product that's coming down that chain, it's going into the river. It goes out, right, as part of our environment. We're not separate from the environment. And the unconscious deed, the denial of the deed itself, that ignorant act is a part of who I am. I'm not separate from my environment. So, I wonder why I'm neurotic. I wonder why I just don't get it. I wonder why there's so much anger around. I wonder why we're in Iraq. Right? I wonder why the government is the way it is. Well, maybe it has something to do with how we're all living. Maybe we're destroying and torturing our environment. Maybe that's making us crazy, making us ill, making us diseased. Now, if you take a look at at education over the past years, you'll see how America is getting dumber. If you look at the studies about how, well, we're a little bit dumber, not a lot dumber. Right? But the reason we're a little bit dumber, they're starting to say now, is that is again the amount of poison that we're processing. It has an effect. So this is quite practical. If I want to be clear and open and conscious and spiritual, and I want to walk around saying, I am a new warrior. I am the second coming. Right? I'm a man of mission. And then I turn around and shit in the river and support agribusiness and drive a big gas-guzzling car that pollutes the atmosphere. Right? I'm in deep hypocrisy. And the state of hypocrisy is a state of enormous disease. And you can't fix it by taking drugs. You can't fix that state of disease or uneasiness. Your soul aches. Your spirit suffers. My soul aches. My spirit suffers. So I come to practice because of a personal need and personal experience and personal understanding about how this works in me. And I know I'm no different than the rest of us. And I know the price when I say, it doesn't matter. Right? The cynic, well, what can I do anyway? So, I was in an airport recently that have now become malls. It's like, these fucking merchants, boy, they slack. They got an hour between flights. Buy and eat, but no, buy and eat. Used to be go to the airport and read. Now it's like you're trampled by people running from one store to the next. But, so I was walking along, and here's McDonald's. Have you seen the movie Downsize Me? Or what is it?
Supersize.
Yeah.
Supersize that.
I haven't seen it yet, but the story is this guy for 28 days goes on a strict diet, and he almost dies. And they think he was done irreversible liver damage in a month. That's all he ate. And by the end of the month, he was addicted. So he gained 35 or 40 pounds, developed diabetes, blew his kidneys and his liver. It was just amazing. And they had 3 doctors that documented this whole thing that he went through. So I'm going along, and I look, and here are all these businessmen lined up, maybe like 15 of them. They must have come off the same flight or something, or the same suitcase made full of briefcases and ties. They're all lined up. I'm going along, and I stop, and I almost said, "Don't do it! Don't go there! What the fuck?" Put yourself together. They'll lock you up. But so called Chicken Shop Theater. Once in a while, I did it for project. Annual reading. Center body. Brought real chicken. Beautiful roll out red, big one. God, she was gorgeous. She was tame. So we put on the car, and all the brothers come around and say, oh, what a nice chicken. I said, okay, who's got a bird animal? Oh, I do. I'm a big thunder thorn hawk. I'm a eagle. I'm like screaming fucking vulture. And I'm like, I said, oh, great, we got some real birds here. Well, I'm ancient bald eagle. Pseudonym for that? Serious big chicken. So I said, why don't you look at my pal here? This is a chicken. This is a serious bird. Right? He gifts us eggs, right? And, oh yeah, okay. So I said, for him. So she's walking around shitting on the guitar and having a great time. And I said, she pick her up. So pick her up and pass her around. She was bak, bak, bak. They're passing her around. I said, okay, you guys, now. Two of the bird, there's one guy holding with a bird. Two of the thunder soaring hawk, big nutted sparrow, come on. Now here's some tools. Here's a hammer, here's the pliers, here's the snips. Go up, cut the beak off, rip the feathers out, bruise it up really good. Oh, fucking word, doing that. I said, you guys eat eggs this morning? Oh yeah, we all have eggs in the morning. Duh! Get commercial egg. They take 8 chickens and they stick them in a battery cage. It's wire mesh this big. 8 chickens. They can't stand up. They can't flap their wings. They cut off their beaks because they go crazy in there and they hammer each other. The meat is so bruised they can't sell it to the markets after they finish laying, which is 6 months to a year. They force molt them. They starve. 5% die, kicking the laying cycle again. Then when they butcher them, they sell them to Heinz or the Campbell soup because they can't put the meat at the market. It's too bruised. So that's what goes in. Okay. That's the commercial egg business. Now maybe none of you know that, what's going on. But that's been in the news for over 30 years. Recently, McDonald's has agreed to stop buying from their suppliers if they debeak. It's a huge problem with the suppliers, because what are they going to do now? The beaks, the chickens will kill each other. So it means they got to somehow open it up. They also leave the lights on 24 hours a day, red light, and play music, which makes the chickens really crazy, and they one more every week. So that's the game. It's called Torture the Chicken. So, knowing that, will any of you ever eat another commercial egg? Or, so, does it matter? Now, inside hollow bones, it matters. And the men that wear the dresses, the fancy ones with the bibs and all this shit, they're on the track. And that track is 100% sustainable and environmentally compassionate. Like the robes that we make, the blue robes, those are not organic cotton. I'm dealing right now with a supplier to get organic cotton. It's very expensive. Oh, I can't afford it. We can't afford it. So it's not true. It costs more. It's like with organic food. We can't afford it. What are you crazy? You can afford to torture these creatures. And you can afford to send a brother in there to torture them so he can feed his children? You send men every day into these places to torture these creatures so you can get 99-cent eggs that you don't want to eat anyway. Right? You get it? Yeah. I can stop. It matters. It matters to the creatures. It matters to the chickens. It matters to the people that have to torture them because you buy the products. But it matters to you because it makes you sick. It makes me sick. It makes us sick. So that's why we have stewardship. You can't be spiritually well and do this to the earth. You can't be spiritually well, psychologically or physically well or healthy. You can't be in a state of grace when your behavior ruthlessly for the sake of ease and comfort violates your environment in every conceivable way. Go home, stand in the middle of your house, Drop to your knees and weep. Everywhere you turn is an expression of greed and corruption and ease and profit, right? Everywhere you turn. So what do you do about it? Go, oh, forget about it. It's way beyond me. This is way too big a project. Or do you go, damn, look at this. Well, I guess I'll stop torturing chickens. That would be a good place to start. And maybe I don't buy something made in a sweatshop by a child chained to a sewing machine in the Philippines by night. Buy a $300 pair of sneakers that a child made and got 12 cents for. So these are the environmental issues that we as a sacred masculine can do an enormous amount about. We just stop playing the game. But when you stop playing the game, where's the other game? When I knelt in the street weeping in Wisconsin in 1958, there was nowhere to turn. There was nowhere to turn. Now we have places to go. We've got somewhere you can support. We've got brotherhood. We've got sisterhood. So we've got environmental places. We have meditation halls. The whole world is changing. We're waking up. So look at what is inside your environmental reality and decide, is it true that this is who I am? Right? And you go, no. Or you go, yes. I just don't give a shit. And then admit that. But admit it. It's not that you're cool. It's not that you're cool. You're cynical and in denial. And you say, okay, that's who I am. So, you see the point here? This is the point. This is the interface. This is where the rubber hits the road. When it's like, oh, let's be spiritual, let's be men of mission. But let's not transform and change our lives where it matters. Open your refrigerator door and go, my God! And close the door. How did you go over here? You see what's in there? So, you way down the hill, I always go to the supermarket. When nobody's looking, I go and I start throwing cartons of eggs in all directions. I just really go, what happened? So that's the environmental issue. I cannot be well when I'm tortured for my own comfort and ease, my very self. So it's easy. Oh, we are brothers. We are one. We are one spirit. Yes. But is that different than the animals? Is that different than the trees or the sacred earth? It's one thing that our Native American brothers bring us. We live that truth. Bring that to us. They bring it to us in the project. And I go, where is it? Or is it just narcissism? Is it just narcissism? So in our order, we ask that you seriously consider these 5 elements in your life and consider them to be training aspects of your life. And where you're at is fine. Where you're at is where you're at. But open your eyes. This isn't just navel gazing or some state of manic bliss. Oh, I get so high on retreats. It's about clear eyes and clear seeing and looking and going, wow, no, there's another way. No, there's another way. And then through your example manifesting in the way. I go home for Thanksgiving every year and lead a retreat. Right after Thanksgiving, starting that Saturday. And now we went last night to my younger brother's house, who's Mr. Success. And he's turned from liberal Democrat to a right-wing Republican. And he's got 67 employees now. Plumbing and heating. Big swimming pool in his back. Getting over his house. So we come in, there's this huge agribusiness feast. It looks good. And then looking at that, there's this little table over here. It's like a safe zone. It's got little organic turkey, right? It's, it's all an organic meal. Love all the way from the producer all the way through, made special because they don't know what else to do with me. So there's a big meal out here, right? And there's this over here, and I noticed that, like, my niece just goes over and goes, "What's organic turkey taste like?" Right? So, but that was, I did not ask. I didn't say, "Oh, I won't eat this stuff" or anything. I would eat it with a relish. So it's not about becoming some insane zealot that frightens people and scares them away. But it's about opening your own heart. What is acceptable to you and what's not? Not to put it out on anybody else, but through your example. If that's how it is, no, wait, eat something that is in harmony with my spirit, with all spirit. One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice. Though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. "Mend my life," each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations. Though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough in a wild night and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world. Determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save it, the only life you could save. Mary Ellen. If you don't know about her, she's a Pulitzer Prize winner, contemporary poet. So that's the review. Right on time, if there were any time.